Hey everyone, my name is Arianna Kholanjani, and I am so excited to be hosting this episode of WIT Talk here at the Spark Studio. Today, I'm going to be talking to Jenny Glass, who is the Director of User Experience at Hexagon Safety, Infrastructure, and Geospatial. We're going to be talking about how she got started working in the tech industry and how she became a leader in her field. So without further ado, let's kick things off and hear from Jenny. Hey Jenny, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for coming out to the Spark Studio today.
Yeah, really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited to record this podcast. So, I want to start off by letting everyone get to know you a little. So, can you tell us a little bit about you and any hobbies, interests, or just any other fun facts about yourself that you would want to share with everyone?
Oh, sure. Well, first off, I have a 2-year-old son, so he's kind of my current pride and joy. So I spend a lot of time with him and my family, of course. And I guess a little known fact about me is that I love Japanese culture, so I try to learn some language as much as I can, watch a lot of anime. I'm just kind of an anime nerd there.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. So, next, can you tell me about your educational background, your current role, and what all of that entails?
Yeah, sure. So, as far as my education background, I actually have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science here from University of Alabama in Huntsville. So, go Chargers. And yeah, from there, I started out my career as a software developer on a was called at the time human-computer interaction team. That was the term before user experience came around. So I was doing software development for them on their front-end user interfaces. From there, somehow I've just grown this user experience career, and it's been so exciting to just see where it went. I'm currently the Director of User Experience for our division at Hexagon, the Safety, Infrastructure, and Geospatial division. And so what that entails is just trying to be an advocate for my team across the division, trying to help us with getting in with users and advocating for user experience to be brought onto as many projects as possible.
That's really cool. I know a lot of people in the Huntsville area have gotten really into the user experience field because of their existing background in computer science or engineering or other STEM fields. So it's really inspiring to see another person, especially a woman, getting into the UX field through that technical route.
Yes, yeah. And when I joined, when I started user experience, as I mentioned, it was kind of in the time before user experience was known as user experience as it is today. And so I truly actually believe that I was part of one of the first user experience teams here in town. So it's been really exciting to be part of the movement here in Huntsville, helping grow that user experience community in town.
So I know you've already said that you had a background in computer science, but how did you start working in the tech industry and specifically end up working in this user experience field?
Yeah. So I was born and raised here in Huntsville, Alabama. And so, being from the Rocket City, of course, I was exposed to technology and people working in tech jobs from a young age. And, maybe when I was 5 years old, I didn't necessarily think to myself, I'm going to become a director of user experience. But, I had some really great role models who helped influence me as a child. And so, I remember, I might be dating myself here a bit, but I remember my dad getting me a How to Program in C book when I was 8 years old, and I was trying to use it on my Windows 3.1 machine. So yeah, a bit long ago. But it's just a general encouragement, through role models like that helped me get into tech. And in high school, I actually had the opportunity to take some intro to computer science courses, and they were pretty rudimentary programs, and maybe the instructors weren't as helpful as I would hope, but it actually was a really great experience to learn how to collaborate with your fellow team members and programmers in that class. So that was really good. But yeah, as far as how I ended up in user experience. So when I was, going to the University of Alabama in Huntsville, I had the opportunity to do an intro to Java course and a computer graphics course or two. And I just really learned that I loved user interfaces and I had a passion for it. And I knew, I didn't know what all options were out there at the time, but I knew I wanted to do something in user interfaces. And so that's really how I got into user experience, I think, is that I was looking for jobs that focused on that area of the software.
Wow, I love your interest with software interfaces, especially because, not everyone knows how to interpret codes like Java or C++. And really, the everyday person's ability to navigate these softwares is so reliant on these user interfaces that are being created by people like you. I also love what you said about role models. I think Huntsville is an especially great place to have these type of role models in STEM careers because it is a very technical and STEM oriented city, which is amazing for women who want to enter these types of careers. So the next question I have is one that I personally think is really interesting, but if you could pick just one moment in your life that defined your career trajectory to where you are now, what would that moment be?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I think looking back, kind of when I was a little earlier in my career at a large prime air and missile defense contractor, I was actually approached by my manager there to be his deputy as a principal investigator on an independent research and development project. And at the time, I'm actually pretty risk averse and a little bit terrified of failure. So the idea was really daunting to me to do that. But I knew that working under him, he'd give me the guidance I needed to develop those skills. And so if I hadn't taken that opportunity to say yes to that, if I'd been too timid to do it, I don't think I would be in the position I am in today. There's really seldom opportunities in your career where you get to kind of test drive a role before you really get into it. And so that's how I got to test drive some of the managerial things, that I am able to do today. I learned how to do project timelines and budgets and how to task people and deal with personnel issues and all kind of in that deputy role. So I don't think I would be where I am today if it hadn't been for him and him seeing that potential in me.
I love that you've had all of these amazing mentors and role models in your life. It's definitely a very important aspect of having a solid career. So now that you're the director of user experience at Hexagon, can you tell me how you came to be in this leadership position at the company?
Yeah, and so, I mentioned that I was in that deputy position. I learned pretty early on that there's kind of a difference between a role and a title. And so anyone really can be a leader. And, I think if you feel called to that in your career, you should develop those skills. But, as I was doing these kind of leadership positions, I started seeing that, it would be easier to influence decisions if I had that kind of manager title. And so that was kind of why I wanted to pursue that. And so, deciding to be in management was the easy part, but actually getting there took a little bit longer. And yeah, it definitely gets more competitive for that role as you get along in your career. And so, for the longest time, I just felt like I was getting in all these deputy roles and I couldn't quite get, all the way to my goal. And so, when I came to Hexagon, I really did have the hope that there would be a lot more options for career mobility and that sort of thing than I'd had previously. And Hexagon, when I started there, I was astounded at how many women there are in leadership roles, and that really excited me and showed me that that was a possibility for me. And they actually have a goal of achieving 30% of women in leading positions there by 2025, which I thought showed their dedication to that,
Oh, wow, that's really cool. I would love to see more companies integrate those kind of goals into their long-term plans. I like to think there's a lot of different leadership styles that people in management positions can have with their employees. And I know that might look a little different depending on what industry you're in or even your individual organization. But before I get into your own leadership style, can you tell me a little bit about how your team operates in terms of managing projects?
Yeah, so we're kind of a central team, but we support other project teams at the company. And so we operate off of those different project budgets and that sort of thing. And we are very much beholden unto whatever those projects' timelines are as far as, when to deliver our designs and that sort of thing.
So does your team use any planning methodologies to plan out more long-term projects?
At least in our division, we're all using Scrum. So our team uses Scrum internally, and we actually manage everybody's tasks, using Microsoft Azure DevOps. And then all the project teams we work with, all the development teams are also on Scrum. So we all speak the Scrum language. Basically, if we don't have capacity to do something, we can say that and everybody kind of understands because they're in the same boat. So yeah, Scrum is huge at our company and I love it. I think it's really nice to kind of have that 2 to 4 week, however long your sprint focus is, and then have that refresh and see if you're still matching the timeline or if you need to adjust. So I love Scrum. I think it's great. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I definitely enjoy Scrum as well. I think it's a really great method for time management at both an individual level and also a team level. I think it's amazing that y'all use Scrum, especially since your team's projects are, like you said, very dependent on the developers' projects. So now that we've established how Hexagon's organizational hierarchy and leadership styles are, can you describe your own leadership style and how you approach managing your team?
Yeah, so I would probably sum it up in one word, which is collaboration. Within my team, I rely on my team members to, be experts in their fields and to provide me with input and guidance on decisions that'll impact their work. And then I also require that they collaborate closely as well, especially now because, originally when my team started, when I became manager, gosh, it's been 5 years ago now, I think this year. When I started, we were 7 team members, and that was pretty easy to manage, but we are now 17 team members. And so that collaboration is super important, especially as we've split into 3 different Scrum teams. Everybody needs to be able to make sure that we're all tracking together so that we don't end up diverging design-wise on our products. So collaboration within my team is important, and it's also important with the teams we work with. The success of user experience in an organization really is dependent on, everybody kind of being on the same page as far and adopting that user experience and taking in our designs. So my team has done an amazing job at developing a really good collaboration with the developers we work with.
I love that you said that. I think collaboration is such an important factor in user experience just because it really does depend on a lot of other factors in an organization like the other teams. So how would you say your leadership style is different from others in the UX field, or even just the tech industry in general?
Yeah, and so I'm not saying that other user experience leaders don't necessarily have software development backgrounds, but I think that my software development background does give me kind of a unique spin from other leaders in the UX industry, just because I can bring that empathy for the developers' pain and frustrations to my team. And as a result, I think we've been able to better support the teams we work with and collaborate with them. Yeah, so I think that's kind of my unique spin there, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that actually, because as I'm learning more about user experience and entering my early career stages as well, I've really been able to understand the value in knowing the computer science concepts behind the interface designs and how that can sometimes be frustrating for developers because if they try to implement a design, it may not always be compatible with the code behind it. So for designers to understand that code behind it is really important for that collaboration, like you said before. So the last question I want to end on is one that I think is really important to encourage other women to enter STEM fields. So I want to ask you, what is one piece of advice you would give to other women looking to get into leadership roles within the tech industry?
Yeah, and so earlier, you mentioned mentors in response to one of my answers, and that's actually the answer I would give is finding a trusted mentor, or maybe even a few that can help guide you on your journey. So I personally am incredibly lucky to have a manager that is, an amazing and inspiring example of a successful woman in tech. And, even better, she wants to help me succeed in my role. So she's always willing to listen and give advice. But, even so, I don't think you can have too many mentors, and I think it's really important to talk to people who are at different points in their career and to get their different perspectives on how they got there. I think I might have felt frustration at times in my career, feeling like I was in that deputy role. I'm never going to get to where my goal. But maybe if I'd had a female role model mentor, earlier in my career, or maybe if I had felt like I could more easily talk to people in leadership roles about my issues and concerns about my career, maybe I wouldn't have felt so frustrated. Maybe they would have said, "Oh, this is completely normal. You're learning a lot," and and taken comfort, in that and not and appreciate the lessons I was learning in the moment instead of feeling like I needed to rush to the goal,
This was such an inspirational conversation. Thank you so much, Jenny, for coming out to the Spark Studio today to talk about you and your leadership journey in the UX field. Make sure to stay connected by following us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn at UAH I2C. Bye everyone, onward and upward.